Hello, and welcome to Heart of the Matter, a broadcast where survivors come on and tell their stories, inspiring us to lead healthier lives. Hello, I'm Susan Smith, your host. I want to remind everyone that heart disease is the number one killer of women, taking the lives of 1 in 4. Also, breast cancer is the main type of cancer found in women in the world. It takes the lives of 1 in 8. I give you both these statistics because my guest today is a survivor of both. I'm so honored to have with me Karen Sammer. Karen and I met in 2018 at the Mayo Clinic, where we were both being inducted, if you will, into the training to become Women Heart Champions, where the Mayo Clinic brings in about 50 women a year like us, trains us in all things about heart disease in women, and sends us back to our community to help and educate and advocate for women there. So we met there and had this great amount of fun, and now I'm here on the broadcast and she's joining me. I'm going to be asking her a few questions here in a little bit, but first let me introduce you to her. Karen Sammer is speaking to us today from New Jersey. As I mentioned, she is a 2-time survivor. Karen is retired from the corporate world where she served as director of tax audits, and she now is a health and nutrition coach. She likes to work with women who have or are at risk of heart disease and other chronic illnesses that can be managed with or through nutrition and lifestyle changes. Won't you help me welcome my guest today, Karen Sammer? Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. So before I want you to tell us your story, and then we'll get into some questions. And normally we say, tell us your heart story, but you have 2 stories to tell. So I'll let you begin where you like and tell us both stories of your survivorship.
Okay, I will. Thank you. So back in 2009, I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle. I was really overweight. I was really overstressed. So I overate. I underslept. I wasn't nourished, but I was certainly overfed. And I went for my annual mammogram and I found out that I had an aggressive form of breast cancer. So that was about, well, it was almost 11 years. Actually, it was just over 11 years ago. So I went through a very grueling year of treatment that included chemo, radiation, and surgery. And in the process of doing that, I wanted to find out how to not have to have that experience again. So I did some research, and I was finding out that there are certain dietary changes that I could have made. And I did. I ended up losing 135 pounds. And in the process of doing that, I found my passion, which was to help other people do the same, to lose weight, to gain control of their health, and do everything through nutrition and lifestyle changes. So I went to school to become a health coach, and then a few years later went to school to become a nutrition consultant. So now I'm a certified health and nutrition consultant, and I work with women, as you said, who are living with or at risk for developing heart disease or other chronic illness that we can manage through lifestyle and nutrition changes. Because it's easier to prevent than it is to cure any of these types of situations. So I really like working with people that who find themselves on the precipice of one of these illnesses, and we can possibly reverse the course if we really work vigilantly together. So then fast forward to 2017, I'm living my happy life. And I was sitting in a meeting in the hospital, fortunately. I was at a Toastmasters meeting in my local hospital. And I had just sat down from doing a little 2-minute table topic. If you're familiar with Toastmasters, you know what that is. And I sat down in my seat and I started to feel a sensation in the middle of my chest that was sort of a burning feeling. It wasn't really painful. It was just an odd feeling. And it radiated out to the tops of my arms and then ultimately to my lower jaw. But I knew that something must have been up because I'd never felt anything like this before. And it just felt strange. So intuitively, I knew that I probably needed help. I asked the gentleman across the aisle from me to walk out with me in the event that I might pass out or something if there was something going on. He took me to a hospital employee who got me over to the ER. In the ER, they hooked me up to an EKG, and they found that I was indeed in the throes of a heart attack. When they took me up to the cath lab, what they found was that they were expecting to stent a blockage. A woman my age very likely had classic heart disease where there was a blockage. They would open it up and all would be well. What they found was, though, that I was having a spontaneous coronary artery dissection, otherwise known as a SCAD. And so that means that the artery in my heart started to, it dissected. So a flap came down and caused a blockage, which caused a heart attack. But there was no plaque buildup in my arteries. I had changed my lifestyle many years prior, and I'm sure that that contributed to the cleanliness of my arteries, especially for a person my age. And so they did not stent that flap. I was fortunate that didn't have to happen, and it ended up healing, and now I'm doing great. But that's what led me into the arena of being a women heart champion. My cardiologist sent me to, as I'm sure yours did too, Susan, sent me to the Mayo Clinic to be trained, and now I'm a community educator. So I go out into the community and I speak about women and our unique challenges around heart health. And but here I am. I'm not ready to go anywhere yet, and feeling better than ever.
You know, I first heard that acronym SCAD when we were at Mayo Clinic, because you're not the only one. I met several other women that had that, and I'd never heard of it in my life. And I, certainly not an expert in heart disease, but it was just something that I had never heard of. So as a flap of skin or tissue, if you will, tears away and blocks your artery. It's not a clog. Is that, I know you just explained it. Is that right?
Yeah, the way I understand it, because I also am not an expert. I'm not even an expert in SCAD, but the artery has 3 layers, and the inner layer kind of comes loose and forms this flap, and then the blood can't get through.
Okay.
So that's and then that causes the lack of blood flow causes the heart attack.
Right. Is there anything that they can say that causes SCAD?
Well, SCAD is a pretty rare occurrence, although I think they're finding more and more that it happens often in young women. So young women who have a cardiac event very often are having a SCAD.
Interesting.
But not a lot is known about it.
Right.
And
okay. Well, and you've survived that. And it really makes me proud to know that. Now, I want to ask you a few questions that come up in every interview. Did you feel any particular emotions after you got your heart diagnosis, or the cancer one for that matter?
In both cases, it was surreal for me. I couldn't get my head around it. It was just, both of them seemed to come out of the blue for me. Especially the heart attack, because with the SCAD, you don't necessarily get any kind of warning signs. You don't get any preliminary symptoms or anything like that. It's just all of a sudden. That's why it's called spontaneous. It just all of a sudden happens. But with the cancer, I didn't. I couldn't get my head around the diagnosis. So I was always I was observing it. I was observing it happening to someone else. Right. It was just an odd feeling.
And I think when I hear that kind of response, it tells me that as women, we're pretty savvy and we're pretty smart about a lot of things, and we usually know or can figure out what's going on. And when something like that comes at us, it does feel surreal. It's like it's hard to wrap your head around. So I want people to know when they hear you say that that's pretty darn normal. So I know you made lifestyle changes early on in your life, but after the heart attack, did you make any lifestyle changes?
So over the years, my exercise kind of fell off the map. I had gotten busy and everything kind of took a priority over my self-care. But my nutrition stayed pretty sound during that time. So what I did after I'd had the heart attack is I went through cardiac rehab, which is critical to our healing for many reasons. But One of the reasons is because when you have a heart attack or any kind of a cardiac condition, sometimes you are afraid to exercise because you never know what's going to happen again. I wasn't doing any exercise when it happened, but there's a certain level of PTSD, I think, that goes along with these events. Cardiac rehab helps you get through that, and it's just a very critical part of the healing. And so many women either deny themselves or are denied access to cardiac rehab. So it's really important that they advocate for themselves and ask for it, or if they are offered it, to take that offer and do it.
Absolutely. Cardiac rehab is one of the most important ways to get well, and to get well quickly, no matter whether you're a man or a woman. And there are statistics out there that women are not offered it, and if they are, they don't follow through for some reason. So yes, everybody go to cardiac rehab. That's really a good lifestyle change to make. So what about yourself? What did you learn about yourself during this event?
That it's going to be hard to get rid of me. I think that my life has been threatened twice, and I'm not ready to go anywhere yet. So I think I found out that I'm very resilient and pretty strong, stronger than I realized that I was.
Right. Great. That's good. So, looking back on all of this, what advice would you give to women about heart disease, SCAD or any of it in general, or about breast cancer? Any advice for us?
Well, certainly don't wait until your health becomes critical to take care of yourself, because that's what I did. I waited until something really hit me on the side of the head before it really got my attention. You don't have to do that. You can start taking care of yourself right now and make significant improvement in your state of health. And also, stay on top of your numbers. Know what your blood pressure is, know what your cholesterol is, know what your blood sugar level is, and just make sure that you have some sort of a baseline. Even if you're not ill currently, have a baseline so you know where you're starting from. And then be a partner in your healthcare. Don't just be a passive recipient of information from your doctor. Make sure that you are getting your questions answered. If you have questions for your doctor, if you don't understand something they're explaining to you, don't just let them pepper you with information. Understand it. And if you don't have a doctor who's willing to sit with you and answer your questions, then find another doctor, because they're out there. And that's really what you want to do. You want to make sure that you understand and that you can partner in your own healthcare, so that you can advocate for yourself. You know what to do, and you can be taken seriously, because that happens to women also. Is that sometimes we are kind of cast aside and not taken seriously.
Right.
And so it's really important to advocate for yourself.
Those are all such great tips, Karen. It's really great to speak to other survivors and hear what they have to say, because each little tip is a bit different. I know. Well, so thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and your information and your tips for all of us. I think everyone will be inspired. So I'll be talking to you in just a little bit. We can talk after this is over. And for the rest of you, thanks for joining us. And I'll be signing off for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.